Believe it or not everything medical legal is bad. Now, before you dismiss me as a total quack, just hear me out. Some things that are legal can be good for you as a physician. Listen in today as Dr. Blocker tells us about her experience as an expert witness and how that's helped her career. It's time for the shift change. My name is Mike McDonald.
And I'm Gina Blocker.
We are emergency physicians with over 35 years of combined experience in community, military, and academic settings. We have courtroom experience.
Both good and bad.
We have business experience.
Both as owners and employees.
We are each married with 5 kids.
But not to each other.
Odds are good that if you're an emergency physician, you will experience burnout, job dissatisfaction, assault in the workplace, depression, anxiety, litigation, and more. We've chosen a career that can literally take years off our lives. So this podcast is here to bring you the doom and gloom and to encourage you to quit.
Wait a second. No. We are 2 emergency physicians who have survived all of the above and are still standing. This podcast is to help you prolong your career in spite of the odds. We will tell you the things we wish we had known when we were starting our careers, use an evidence-based approach to the problems facing our specialty, and offer solutions that have helped us and others using the lessons we've learned along the way.
Okay, that sounds better. So thanks, Gina, for joining us again today. We want to talk about your work as an expert witness. I know that you have several side gigs. You're not just an emergency physician. You do a lot of other things too. You have your urgent care business that you've mentioned before. But you're also an expert legal witness. So why don't you just start today just telling us kind of what that is, how you got into it, and what that's about.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the introduction. So I want to talk a little bit about the expert witness side gigs everybody sort of knows it termed as. I got into it by just wanting to have another form of income, right? So clinically used to going into work, making money from the emergency department, from my shift work, but wanted to be able to monetize my degree a little bit and be able to use it more dynamically across the enterprise of emergency medicine. So what I decided to do was get some more information about being an expert witness. All emergency physicians board certified are SMEs, or subject matter experts in the field of emergency medicine. So one of the ways
I'll stop you there because that raises a question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I got questions as you're going here. So how did you pick this as your side gig, and like what led you down that path? And then you said you started looking into it. Like, where did you go to look into it?
Yeah, so I took a course. I first found out about side gigs for emergency medicine physicians, and expert witness work came up as one of the searches through a Facebook group, Physician Mom Group. It's a very large Facebook group comprised of 80,000 plus women physician mothers on the internet. And that was one of the alternative forms of income for emergency medicine physicians, as well as other specialties as well. So looking into that, I found a course that's offered for physicians on how to get started being an expert witness. And I took that course.
Okay. And was there anything about that had particular appeal to you out of like the list of other things that you could do?
Yes. So I really always enjoyed reading. I always enjoyed, journal articles. I always enjoyed, I'm a published author. So I always enjoyed kind of like researching, and, I wanted to be a better clinician. And I think this side gig actually makes you a better clinician because you document better, you chart better, you refresh your memory. I mean, as we age in the field, right? Some of the most common themes of practice begin to somewhat wane a little bit if you don't see those cases. So you have the opportunity to see and evaluate and assess cases that are given to you by the medical malpractice attorneys.
Okay, well, stick a pin in that because I want to come back to that. But before we get to kind of how it's changed your practice, which is where we're headed, you mentioned that when I cut you off, you were starting to talk about kind of what it takes to become an expert witness. And so my question is, as an outsider looking in, like, can just anybody do it? Do you need any specific training? Like, what is it that makes you a quote unquote expert?
Right. So experts must be board certified or should be board certified from their board, their college that they practice. So for us, it's the American Board of Emergency Medicine. So board certified in the field with a minimum of 5 years of clinical experience. So you don't have to have any expert witness experience, but at least 5 years is kind of like the threshold of clinical research to become an expert.
Okay. But there's no additional training to that. As long as you're board certified and you're
No.
old enough, so to speak,
That's
you
correct.
can do it.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
correct. And also
So
be
how
working
long have you been
clinically.
doing it? Not
That's-
to age yourself. How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it since 2018.
Okay. And so how much
picked
time
up
does
my
it
first
take?
case.
Kind of take us through, like, a day in the life of an expert witness. I know when we've talked about it in the past, you've mentioned that, sometimes it's busier and sometimes there's nothing to do. Like, is this something that's kind of always there, or what kind of a time commitment is it for you?
Right. So you can make it as busy or not as busy as you want. That's one of the pearls of doing this kind of work on the side. I know actually emergency physicians who make it their full-time gig now that it's so lucrative, right? So you can decide how many cases you want to take on. As you get busy with cases, lawyers will refer you and you may be offered more cases as you get more experience in the field. So for me personally, I list myself on a website that lawyers can choose expert witnesses. You write a little bio about yourself and they can choose if you'd be a good expert for their case, and then they contact you.
And that's it? You don't do any other kind of advertising, or it's all
You
just
can,
that?
if you feel like you want more cases, you can do that. But for me, I do anywhere from 5 to 10 cases in 6 months or so. So maybe 15 to 20 cases a year. But that's pretty busy for me. I've scaled back when I work more clinically, which is nice. Or if I'm traveling more, I'll pick up a few more cases. But the cases usually last anywhere from 6 months to a year. So you could be working on the same case for a year or more, just depending on how fast the case is moving.
And what's your typical involvement in the case? So do they tell you before you choose, or I assume that you accept the case, like you get to pick and choose? Like, do they present you the case and then you get to look at it and say, like, this is something I want to do? And then what's your obligation then after that?
Yes, they present the case to you in a very unbiased, sort of covered email, just giving you their very basics about the case. And my job is to review the emergency department records as far as does it meet the standard of care. And I do 50% defendant, 50% plaintiff cases. I keep it very balanced. I try to keep it balanced. That's a good plan for an expert, is to try to keep your cases balanced. So I decide if I'm able to take that case on or not, just depending on the details of the case presented to me.
But even that is choice, right? Whether you take a plaintiff case or a defendant case, you choose your balance of those things.
Yes, that's right. You have autonomy there.
Okay. Yeah. When I've talked about this to other people, I've never done it, but I have, it's come up over the years in various settings. That always seems to be kind of a sticking point for a lot of physicians. Like, I never want to be going after another physician. I'll tell you my personal philosophy. I've seen some people do some really bad things to people as physicians. I do think there is a role for medical malpractice. And so I'm curious to hear your perspective on taking a plaintiff case or a defendant case. How do you pick and choose how to do that? Which cases you want to pursue?
It's been my experience that the plaintiff cases that I have accepted have been pretty egregious. So it makes it a little less difficult for me to decide whether to take that case. And I look at baseline, records and allegations, and I keep it very focused on the standard of care for the case, and try to remove my inherent bias, my unconscious bias from that evaluation, and from there it becomes pretty cut and dry for me.
Gotcha. Okay. So you said that you do, between 10 and 15 cases a year. You don't really advertise very much. When you first started out, was it more challenging to kind of get your first case, or Is it pretty,
My
are you turning cases away all the time because there's just so much out there that it doesn't take very much?
Once listed in the database, the cases came pretty quickly. I had 3 or 4 in the first, 2 to 3 months. And then some cases settled. Most cases that I've been referred have settled out of court after the depositions have been settled. So really only 5 to 6% go to court or go to trial. So it's a pretty low number. So I can stay pretty busy without being super busy if I want to.
Yeah, gotcha.
Hmm.
Uh, so to go back to kind of once you pick up a case, what kind of time commitment is there? Like you said that you like doing research and kind of reading and stuff. Is there,
Hmm.
I assume that you kind of take the facts of the case and then sort of look up what is the standard of care in this situation, what should have been
Hmm.
done compared to what was done. But do you have to like create a document? Do you have to, at what point do you testify or do a deposition? Those different things. Before I got sued back in the day, like I didn't know what any of those words even meant, or what the
Hmm.
process entailed. So kind of just take us broadly through the path of a case, if you would.
Sure. So I'll receive an email, basics of the case. I accept. I await a retainer that's furnished to the legal team, the firm that provided the case to me. Then we decide a timeline for the case. All this is really via over email. Decide a timeline for the case when I can review the records by. In my contract, I usually review the records within 14 days, 14 business days, and then make contact with the legal team, discuss the case by phone, requesting additional documents or images to be sent. And then once that's done, we actually make a document together with my opinions on the standard of care. Some legal offices and firms require like a written report. That's not sort of been my practice. It's always kind of a discussion, and then us together, me with the legal team, making a list of, causation, analysis, standard of care, bullet points, and then from there proceeding forward with how the case is going to progress, and then the timeline. Then I review additional depositions from other, consultants or inpatient, medical records. But I only, uh, opine my opinion upon the emergency department records for which I'm retained for.
Gotcha. So if they have, I assume the defendant then, if you're a plaintiff case, if the defendant has their own expert witness that says the exact opposite of what you're saying, like you're not like verbally directly ever going kind of back and forth. You're stating your opinion, and then the lawyers are going to take that and do what they want with it. Am I understanding that right?
That's right. And then they'll depose you. You'll get deposed by either the plaintiff or the defendant's attorney regarding your opinions on the standard of care.
Okay. And for those who don't know what a deposition is, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. So now it's kind of cool since the pandemic. There's virtual depositions. It used to be, done in the court of law where you have to present in person. But the majority of depositions that I've done since the pandemic have been virtual, which has been really nice. So I can do it from home. I can do it from like an office building in my city, and the attorney can be in another state or in another building, even in the same city. But they send like a court reporter, and you can do the deposition remotely just via Zoom, like we are talking right now. So you go, your legal team is there, the opposing legal team is there, and you will be deposed by either the plaintiff's or the defendant's attorney, based on your opinions and your thoughts on the case as regards to the emergency department records for the standard of care. So you will be asked questions. You will be in the hot seat. It can get very hot in that seat if you aren't well read on the case files, on the records, even like times and dates, pertinent labs that play for the case, even other specialties that will make an emergency department appearance. What does that mean? And then your practice, right? So the standard of
Mm-hmm.
care is what another emergency physician would do given the same circumstances as you're being questioned upon, right? So that is the definition of the standard of care. And so it's interesting how that is different for many emergency physicians, right? Based on time in training, time in practice, where you practice, who you practice, your practice population, all those things, play. And so the legal teams pick experts quite specifically based on how they're trying to try the case. And so it's both interesting. It's made me a better documenter, and my clinical, acumen much better. My documentation has been amazing, very, very detailed, because that's what's really important in these medical cases, and being very straightforward in my discussion of cases, right? Keeping to the facts.
Yeah, sure. So the deposition basically is the other team's, legal team's, opportunity to sort of question your thought process, and then kind of that's what they use to build their defense or their case. Agenda, their case with. So it does happen outside of the courtroom. I didn't know that any of that happened when I got sued, and we'll probably do a show about my experience on the other side of the legal thing. I didn't know that was a thing, but my attorney was very good. She kind of gave me a practice deposition ahead of time. She told me what to say, what not to say, kind of what to share, how to answer questions. There really is sort of a strategy to doing it that I was thankfully prepared for when the time came, but had been unprepared for. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what the term meant at the time.
I mean, most physicians that come out that haven't been sued, I've never been formally sued, right? So most physicians don't know the process, and they take part in the process not knowing or having been gone through the process. It can be very daunting. Now, let me tell you, as the person getting deposed, right, as the expert, they will ask you personal questions about your history. So, even when I was getting deposed, they'll ask me have you ever been sued? Have you ever had, they'll ask you about your criminal background. They'll ask you about, your board exams. They'll ask you about your time in your practice, where you practice. Some even ask how much money you make an hour. So the opposing attorneys can be quite shark-like in their questioning, and you have to really be ready to handle that level of questioning with some finesse.
Yeah, well, part of their strategy, I assume, is to discredit you as an expert. I would imagine.
That's right. That's right.
So you just have to be able to defend yourself. Okay, you mentioned a couple of times that this has made you a better physician. How has it changed the way that you look at patients and the way that you look at? Well, let's just start with that. How does it change the way you look at patients? Has it affected your interaction with your patients to the good, to the bad, or indifferent?
Yes, it's affected my interaction. It really has, because I realized when people feel like you care about them, or when they personally connect with you, you allow them to connect with you, there's a relationship there where they feel like you will and you cannot do them any harm. And so when they feel like they're being cared for, and they feel like you're connecting with them and you take time with them, I've actually, been in situations where I've been wrong, right? I've made a wrong choice, or I've had to let the patient know I made a mistake, or let them know, actively, while they're in the department in my care, that I did something wrong and it affected their care, right? Which I'm sure could have at some point in the 15 years ended up in a lawsuit of some sort. When you do the wrong thing and you're transparent.
I think that's everybody's biggest fear.
Yes. Whether I've ordered the wrong medication, I've given the wrong dosage, or I got the patient confused, or I put them on the wrong service, whatever it is, and I've had to, be transparent with patients, they are more understanding and less punitive towards me based on me being more transparent. And I realized a lot of it is about transparency and communication. So that's helped me actually be a better physician with my documentation, with my safe discharge instructions, all those things, inviting people back to the emergency department, giving them explicit return precautions. So it's really kind of helped me hone in on that. And some of the cases that I try could have been maybe avoided if there were certain communicative things in place prior to discharge. So I really try to make that part of my practice to make people feel comfortable to always return to the emergency department and telling them what to return for, and then documenting if they have any questions about what to return for.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Have you had, when we're training residents, I often hear, the rationale for obtaining a test, whether it's a lab test, a CT scan, whatever the case may be. I think in the minds of a lot of people is, I want to do this to protect myself from a legal situation. So I'm going to, this person, I don't think they have anything in their belly, but I'm going to scan their belly to quote unquote protect myself. Have you, in your experience, found that to be a protective strategy, or does it even matter?
It's case by case, but I'll tell you, if you keep protecting the patient in the forefront of your mind, it will always protect you. And so I try to keep that in the front of my dispositioning when I send patients home, or even when I admit them to the hospital. We talk about turnover, right? When we're about to leave shift and somebody else is going to come on shift, I'll just do this one thing to tie up the end, just to make sure I don't miss anything, or even to help my partner out where they're not having to work on something I've already worked on. If you always do the right thing for the patient, you'll always end up protecting yourself in the end. Sometimes you try to do the right thing for yourself and not for the patient, like I'm leaving, or I'm too busy, or I don't want to turn the patient over, or I want the RVUs for this case, so I'm just going to tie it up and send them home real quick, right? So is it the best thing for the patient? I keep that in the front of my mind at every disposition, admission, discharge, or observation. I keep that in the front of my mind. If it takes me more time, I turn it over and I do the right thing. If it's best for the patient and they're here for another hour, I explain it to them why I'm keeping them here, and let them make a shared decision making with them based on their diagnosis. So I always engage with the patient first, and then do the best thing that's in their best interest for discharge.
Well, that is so perfectly said. I think keeping the patient first, protect the patient, and you will protect yourself. That's really well said. On that note, I think we'll call it a day. Things I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known that exact fact. Protect the patient, and you will protect yourself. So on that note, thank you, Gina, for sharing your experience. I'm sure we'll come back to it at some point and dig a little deeper into maybe some of the cases that you've seen and some of the interesting things you've come across along the way. I do look forward to talking about the flip side of being the defendant in a case, and kind of how that experience goes, and how the process can be a little more daunting than I thought it would be coming before I went through that experience. So we'll come back to that later on, but for now, we'll call it a day. Thanks for joining us. As always, send us your thoughts, your comments, your feedback. Click like, click subscribe. That'll help us out. And you can always reach us at shiftchangepod@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Be part of the conversation. Until next time, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Only a doctor would say, I'm just a doctor.
We have to change the narrative.
I need to rekindle this curiosity about why we do what we do.
Give yourself time to mourn the change of the shift that you're in your life.
It's okay when it feels like too much.
It's okay.